Alright, we're going to do a quick little video on soldering Deans. Once you get soldering down pat, you're going to be amazed at how much more you're able to do when it comes to tech work. I mean, you might be able to solder now, but when you can do a really good clean solder joint and it doesn't take you a while and doesn't melt the plastic, then you won't be afraid to tackle anything. And it won't matter what battery you buy, what gun you buy, you won't even be worried about the connector, because you know when you get it you'll be able to solder on Deans or whatever you want in a matter of minutes. So first off, and one of the most important things for your iron, if you're doing Deans, you need a good chisel tip on your iron. That's going to transfer the heat the most efficiently, better than the conical pointed ones. As you can see, you know, it's pretty much as wide as that connector right there, which transfers the heat great. Your goal is to get in and out as quick as possible. You know, I mean, you don't want to do a sloppy job, but you don't want to have your iron sit on there and make that plastic soft, because your pins will shift and then your connector won't come apart or it won't go together. Also, another thing to note, when you are soldering Deans, have them together like that. It keeps everything lined up perfectly in case you do get it a little too hot and something decides to shift. If they're together, it can't do that. It also acts as a heat sink and helps you know, take care of the excess heat. But with that said, we're gonna go ahead and you'll need a few minor things: a pair of cutters, razor knife possibly. This is made for soldering circuit boards. It's like a little holder, comes in handy. You may or may not want to use a jig for soldering Deans. This jig works great. It's designed for Deans and mini Deans and an assortment of other connectors. You can pick those up at any hobby shop. Another little pair of you know, alligator clips, little aluminum block, nice weight, keeps things in place. Of course, you'll need some heat shrink and whatever your project is. I've already got these wires tinned. If you don't know what tinning is something you do before you solder your joints together. To tin something, you just strip off whatever you need. I always do like a 1/4 inch. Strip it off, give it a little twist. You're gonna heat that up, fill it full of solder, and then you'll have something that looks like that right there. It's solid solder all the way through. And then you would do the same thing on your Deans connector. You'd go ahead and pre-tin those, and then when you put the two together, you're just going to melt them together and you've got a solid connection point there. If you don't get it hot enough, if the solder's barely melting, you're going to get what's called a cold joint. It'll look like it held, but it's called the cold joint, and it will fail eventually. Maybe not right away, but you're not getting your best electrical current through that, and it'll eventually end up breaking on you. Alright, iron's heated up. Another thing to mention is always keep your tip clean. Make sure your sponge is good and damp. You always want a clean tip. And then you're always going to want to tin your tip before you do anything. Just apply a little bit of solder on either side, just like that, and you're good to go. So we're going to go ahead and pre-tin the Deans connector here. I always like to run a little solder down around the sides, on the front of it. That way it wraps all the way around. Go ahead and wipe your tip off, give it a clean. And then let's see if we can keep this in focus. You've got the solder wrapping down the sides and onto the bottom with that one pin. So it's completely wrapped all the way around, so when we marry the two joints together, it is not going to go nowhere. So we'll flip that over. tin the other side. The solder I'm using is just a basic 60-40 rosin core solder. Occasionally I'll use, I think it's a 62-36-2. It's got a little bit of silver in it, but I'd say 99% of the time it's just the 60-40. Seems to work just fine. So just apply a little heat. See, it don't take much. Down around the sides, around the bottom. A little more on there. Ain't gonna hurt nothing to get a little extra on there. Alright, so now we are ready to marry those two joints together. Like I said, I've already pre-tinned the wires on the Autobot here. The Autobot came with a mini Deans connector, which to me was a pain in the ass since all my batteries are regular Deans. I made this little adapter, but since everything fits in the buffer tube, space is very limited. So that's why we're just going to go ahead and change it out to regular Deans. I could have, changed everything out to mini Deans, but, bigger is better, right? Alright, so if you probably can't see on here, but if you look on the Deans connector, the fat part, if you're looking at it like a T-shape, the fat part up here on top is always going to be your positive. This is going to be your negative. You want to make sure you pay attention to that, so that way we don't get our polarities mixed up. Always remember to slide your heat shrink on. I don't know how many times I have forgot to do that, get everything soldered, and I realize, shit, we gotta take things back apart now. So same process, clean your tip. Can't stress that enough. Clean tip is a good tip. Tin it, and then what I like to do is I like to kind of sandwich it in between here. Let's see if we can make this where you can see it right. Get that a little melted, and just put it on top and hold it. And there you go. That is a secure solder joint. It's wrapped all the way around the sides and everything. It is not going nowhere. You're just going to repeat that process for the negative. Same thing, don't forget to apply your heat shrink. Yeah, that'll lay better like that. And there you go. That is a Deans connector soldered. I can do it a lot faster if I'm not trying to do everything for a camera, but I mean seriously, once you get this down pat, you'll be knocking these out like it ain't nothing. And like I said, then you won't even be worried about what kind of connector the gun comes with, what kind of battery connector is on there, or on the battery or whatever. Nothing's gonna phase you. We're gonna knock that bird down right there, so we don't poke a hole through our heat shrink. You just slide your heat shrink up there. It cools rather quickly. It's kind of amazing since things were just baked at 800 degrees. Deans connectors do require a minimum of 750 degrees Fahrenheit for a good solder connection. I got my iron set to 800 just to be on the safe side. Like I said, as long as you get in and out really quick, you're not going to do any damage to the plastic. So everybody knows how heat shrink works. Slide it up, cover your joints, wave your lighter underneath, give it a little turn, and there you go. Make sure everything's where it needs to be, and then shrink it on down the rest of the way. just like so. There you go. Now my mini Deans is regular Deans, and I can use all my batteries with it. It's just as simple as that, guys. I hope this video was somewhat informative. I know it's not the most professional, but I'm just trying to get the hang of things here and get videos out. And anybody has any questions or things they want to see done, let me know. I'd be more than happy to try to help you out, make a video on it, a little tutorial, whatever I need to do. But for now, it's just going to be the basics. So please like, share, comment, subscribe, and be safe out there, guys.